Greetings! I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today I'm going to build something radical.
You know that's not really what they mean by rad, right, Herbert?
Anyway, this is an Sd Kfz 263 8RAD. It's a 72nd scale kit from First to Fight, intended for their wargame Rezhizhen 1939. The back of the box has a basic painting and marking guide, some information in German, Polish and English, and of course the instructions. These exploded diagrams are fairly simple and easy to understand, but they are a bit small. The digital instructions are linked in the description below, so if you're struggling to use your Mark I eyeballs, the digital one can be pretty helpful. You can zoom in on it. Fancy. Inside the box, we find 3 sprues moulded in a fairly dark grey plastic, and they look pretty good. The detail is rather nice, though there is a bit of flash in some areas, which was kind of annoying to clean up, the worst of it being on the suspension gear and the front plate of the fighting compartment. Other than that though, everything looks great. There's a lot of good detail in this kit. I couldn't tell you how accurate those details are, I'm no 8radologist after all, but as far as models go, this is quite good looking. There are some kind of annoying things, like the radio antenna. There are so many sprue gates on it that it took me a really good chunk of time to clean up. Not only that, you have to be extra careful not to break the parts while doing so. It could be worse. While there are, obviously, a few thin, easily broken parts in this kit, like most First to Fight kits seem to have, I would say this is one of the better kits in that regard. The suspension is all one piece, which I was kind of surprised by. This tiny little bit of metal is the gun barrel. It is, as you can see, very small. There is also a plastic gun, but I'll be using this one. Even if you can't really see better detail in the metal here, it's definitely going to be harder to damage, and with a gun this small, that's a bonus. We get a decal sheet with number plates and crosses, and it is pretty simple, but you probably don't really need more than this anyway. And of course, the magazine. And as always, this is in Polish, so I can't read any of it without the aid of some sort of translator, but that's okay. There are pictures, and I like pictures. There's also another copy of the instructions, which is still a little bit small, but as I said, the digital instructions are linked in the description. Okay, time to glue some bits of plastic together. First, I glue this front plate part into place. This part did have a bunch of flash, which, as I mentioned before, was kind of annoying, but it's pretty simple to install. I did this first up because being able to put a finger in behind it to help position it is rather helpful, and you can't really do that once the hull is together. While that's bonding, I attach the headlamps and tail lights to the lower frame part. I do rather like the way that the light sets are single parts that go through the middle of the frame. It's much easier to put them on the model this way, and they should line up with each other automatically. I think that's a really good design choice. I then glue the 2 hull parts together. There are guide pins which obviously guide things so they get lined up nice and neatly. A bit of pressure to make sure that no unwanted gaps form, and jobs are good'n. I then glue the frame to the hull part. I guess the frame is also part of the hull, but whatever. You know what I'm talking about. Again, a bit of pressure was needed, but it's not exactly difficult. The bulk of the model is already together, and it feels quite solid. Wheels come next, and there are 8 of these. That's why it's called an 8RAD, because the Germans know that wheels are rad. The wheels are really easy to put on, and the suspension is nice and solid. The upper and lower parts provide extra contact points, and therefore extra strength, which is definitely a bonus in a wargaming kit. The guards, I guess you would call them, go on next. There's a couple of tabs to help position these, but they don't really lock the part firmly in place or anything like that, so you've got to be a bit careful with them. Onto the fronts of those guards, I add these little things. I'm not quite sure what they are. Maybe some kind of stowage. There's nothing to guide these, but they're easy enough to eyeball. Now for some fiddliness. These little thin things on the sides. I don't know what they are, maybe antennas or some sort of hand railing. I did break one of them.
Oh, big surprise there, Herbert, you clumsy idiot.
But it wasn't too hard to glue it back together and put it on the model. I'm sure they're not absolutely perfect, but they are on, which is probably the important thing. I then add the main gun. I used super glue because it's metal, and I press it into place. Looks pretty good, and you can gently bump it without immediately snapping it. That's pretty good. On the engine deck I add this antenna mast. It had a lot of flash, and I did clean it up as best I could, but it still looks a bit messy. And the final step is the big antenna. This part, you probably won't be surprised to learn, took most of the time of this build. There are so many sprue gates that have to be clipped and cleaned up, and the part is quite thin, and as the thin parts in First to Fight kits are prone to doing, they'll break very easily. I was kind of surprised that I only broke it in 2 places. That's probably pretty good. It's not too difficult to position and glue the antenna into place, though it did take a little bit of fiddling and nudging. I think I might have clipped off part of the mountings for the fighting compartment roof, though they were very messy, and even if the lumps there were meant to be mounts, it was just easier to cut it so the poles were straight. It looks fine to me anyway. And that's it. The 72nd scale 8 rad from First to Fight is now completed. I think it's a really nice model of what I would consider a kind of weird and interesting vehicle. It is, as I said, intended as a wargaming piece, but I feel like this would be perfectly fine as a display piece too. That is one of the good things about First to Fight's kits. They're usually quite nicely detailed. The unusual thing with this kit is that it actually feels fairly solid and should easily stand up to use on the gaming table. Having said that though, the antenna does make it very delicate to handle. First to Fight do offer at least 2 other 8 rads, which I'm pretty sure share parts with this kit. The one without the antenna is probably a really good solid kit for the gaming table, and I might check it out one day, mostly out of curiosity. I mean, I've already got this 8 rad, I don't need more, do I? Maybe I do need more. Anyway, it was a nice quick build, which is exactly what the doctor ordered. The only real complaint I have is that the antenna took so long to prepare. It's not the worst thing in the world, and it is probably better for it to have so many sprue gates and be intact than have it come out of the box broken. I mean, it did get broken, by me, but that's not the same thing. I am definitely waffling. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the comments section below. Subscribe if you'd like to see more, support on Patreon or Ko-fi if you're able, and why not check out some of the links in the description. There's stuff down there. Take care of yourselves, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.